Yo, fashionably late. Appreciate. Uh, the fuck? Everyone coming by. I'm going to also look into Sabotage Linux. I gotta first learn how to install it with my room temperature IQ. You have to remember that I'm retarded, and it's not always simple for me to understand stuff because I'm retarded. But I'm willing to learn. Willing to learn is a sign of above room temperature IQ moment. Um, and okay, maybe TrueNAS good, man. Motherfucker. I had my TrueNAS server get taken out, which was truly ungrateful, ungrateful, and unexpected because it was done by my Battle Axe, which was kind of funny. And always remember to place your Battle Axe away from your TrueNAS server. It is going to ensure that it is almost 0% chance that your Battle Axe will take out your TrueNAS server, but not zero because nothing is ever zero. But it's so low that it is non-existent. We will look at Sabotage OS. It is pretty based, actually. After talking to open-based and OpenBSD enjoyers, they're pretty much like Intel Arc GPUs, just do not work. F in the chat for me having an Intel Arc GPU. It's not fully supported yet. Maybe in the future it'll be. And OpenBased and FreeBSD does. OpenBase does not really like virtual machines, which is unbased actually, and cringe. Whoo. And I believe my cat has autism. The RC, okay. Based, true. I am less than 60 hours from being monetized. Now, I do have some thoughts and theories what I'm going to do. I most likely will do I will turn on YouTube monetization, but with what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be with the assumption, this isn't like concrete or anything. It will be with the assumption that I will be doing this by converting all the earnings from YouTube, well, half the earnings from YouTube into Monero to curate and live off the, pretty much go into the Monero circular economy. And then the other half will be go into production stuff, things where I can purchase like products with and then do reviews on. Essentially, kind of my end goal, not to do YouTube full time, but to be able to have access to privacy and security options out there in terms of like services and like devices, but without having people to spend their money first. Not really a review channel because that's kind of gay, not gonna lie. For the review channels out there. My issue with YouTube right now is that people just take sponsorships left and right. They take free products left and right without saying that there is no biasness and there is no, because no money was exchanged, that the biasness leaks away from them. I disagree with that. Just because a company doesn't pay you, and just because a company doesn't pay you, doesn't mean that you best channel. Keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate it. Just because a company doesn't pay you doesn't mean that doesn't form a biasness, especially if you are interested in the product and you are getting not going to watch this stream since I'm looking into Carrie Lockheed adders. What the fuck is this? What's Carrie Lockheed adders? That's because, you know what? I'm going to have to put Gentoo probably on my my system now, because FreeBSD and OpenBSD, Digital Logic is fun. Oh, nice, based. Unfortunately, Intel and FreeBSD and OpenBSD are not friends. So because they're not friends, it kind of sucks. Planetary channels are like straight. What the fuck? I watched the stream after. Thank you. I appreciate watching the stream after. Always. That is the only benefit of YouTube, is because these can turn into VODs, and then these VODs could live on forever, and my watch time will increase. But my main problem and gripe with YouTube right now is because YouTubers want to pay their rent, and they want to make YouTube for a do YouTube for a living. They essentially cannot live off ad revenue because it isn't quote unquote sufficient enough. I don't know how true that is. A lot of YouTubers say that they can't expose, and I'm using heavy quotes there, what they make on YouTube. That's not true. There's actually, I've seen tons of YouTubers expose essentially what they make. In real life, they expose what they make from the ad revenue in real time. And there are some channels out there that have really good clicks per like ad. And they're making like insane amount of money without needing to take sponsorships, etc. But my general first problem with YouTube, Draw. So the first problem with YouTube. Oh no, JavaScript. It's too new. So the first problem with YouTube is comes a box problem. And these are essentially the same issue. Is YouTubers have this thing where they have overproduction. I'm going to call this where their overhead, I guess like overproduction and overhead. They'll be like literally just a fucking drama channel, or they'll be like a channel where, like, why do you need 30 editors? You know what I mean? I mean, you can just go on the list. And then here's the other problem. They need to pay themselves. This is really a money problem. So a lot of YouTubers will do this thing where their overhead is huge and they overproduce. And because they overhead and overproduce, they essentially need this at the end of the day. They need money. Now, when you go down to the nitty-gritty of it, this could, in my opinion, as much as people agree or disagree with it, this could create something I would call I guess like the easiest way to look at it is it will cause in my opinion, what you would call a conflict of interest. Maybe even morals. A lot of YouTubers where they have a conflict of interest. or morals. Where they wouldn't be using half the shit they fucking sponsor. They wouldn't be taking half the sponsorships if YouTube ad revenue would fulfill their needs. They wouldn't have to. But again, at the same time, they also their overhead and they overproduce. They'll get a fucking studio. They get it when they're like making maybe like like $3,000 to $4,000 a month pre-tax. They'll get fucking like 15 editors. They'll do all these extra steps in producing this high quality content. And I'm using heavy quotes again. When I've seen high quality content, there's a YouTuber that I follow, and they quite literally talk about this all the time. They say that like I don't they're like I do all the editing. And I did the studio myself in my room. Like, the studio's in my room, I do all the editing. Because their editing isn't, like, that insane. And again, like, editing, like, maybe, like, 90 to, like, 80 to 90% of YouTube videos, you could just do fucking jump cuts and, like, some silly, haha, funny memes in there, and you're done. You don't need to fucking hire an editor and pay him stupid gobs of money for your fucking channel. Like, so... Because again, these people do these. They overhead and overproduce. Maybe overproduce would be the correct term, not overproduction. They overproduce. They need money, and that money becomes a conflict of morals and interest because they'll take any sponsorship under the sun in order to stay afloat or above float or XYZ. Maybe views are down. Maybe ads aren't paying as much as with XYZ. So this is like the YouTube trap problem. You could become very what's the word I'm looking for? You could become very, very like popular and good on YouTube and make a good living. XYZ, whatever. But the problem is eventually ad revenue won't be enough to replace your maybe your 9 to 5. This is why I think you shouldn't put all your money into YouTube. You should probably split off and do other ventures, maybe Patreon or something, blah, blah, blah. But this is where my conflict of interest comes from. I don't like ads. I embrace people to run ad blockers. I don't like YouTube. YouTube takes about 40% of your ad revenue anyways. You get about 60%. I think Twitch does 50-50 once you get in the partner program, which I don't know where I'm at on that, to be completely honest. And I don't know how Kick works because I don't understand Kick. But I'm there because I have a general fear that my content will be that my content could be censored and or kicked off or copyright striked into oblivion, where I cannot exist. I mean, it's YouTube's platform at the end of the day, whether people want to agree with it or not. This is just my general speaking to people that maybe want to get into this space, that want to make privacy and security centric type of content. It's definitely a lucrative kind of field. Niche items obviously are better, and you grow faster because niched products are obviously better and make you grow faster. I mean, that's not really like a revolutionary take. The issue is YouTube has full control. They take a ton of your revenue, even though you're really the one that's producing it the most. A 60-40 split. Some platforms say they do this one XYZ, but the other problem is Odyssey is a giant pile of shit that's using some Web3 shit cryptocurrency that I am not aware of, and it doesn't seem like it was a good idea. They're gonna pay you in it. That's kind of dumb. No one cared about library tokens. No one cares about this shit cryptocurrency that they're also like shoving down your throat. They could have just picked Monero. It would have been much easier because Monero you can convert Bitcoin. Bitcoin you convert to cash. If you want to do that in that order. But again, Odyssey doesn't care about its users and doesn't really matter. Even though people have spoken out and said, "Hey, you should have just integrated Monero. It would have been a better option." Problem number 2, minus the paid advertising and the YouTube banning. Another realistic issue to look at in perspective with YouTube is you have to understand that not only that there's up and downs and like the copyright strikes, YouTube is about retention. They care about, I mean, they have an algorithm. You're against essentially fighting against the algorithm. So you have to constantly adjust to what's popular to be relevant and stay relevant. Once you capture your audience, then you have to, do it that kind of way. I don't like that. I think it takes away from like the character of YouTube. You used to be able to just find a channel and be like, hey, I like this channel. They would do like, jump cutting was like kind of like the most popular point of YouTube at that time, is where people are doing like jump cut after jump cut after jump cut. And then essentially they would, you would go on and find another one. Like think of like old YouTube. This is why I like PureTube. And I think PureTube is kind of like YouTube as if it was like put back in the early 2014, 2010 era, like when it was really like trying to find like a place in the internet. I think my problem, I guess, like that's kind of like my main gripes with YouTube. But I only stream on it because I want people to find better alternative platforms. The issue is there's not really a good one out there that can really replace YouTube, and I don't think there's going to be for a very long time, because YouTube has such a dominating force in the space to be relevant, to serve you content that keeps you engaged, etc., 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 etc. Leave your house for like a couple hours and just look at how many people are just like glued to their like screen, even though they're in fucking public with all their friends and stuff. Like it's quite insane. Okay, so I will. Look at Sabotage OS. I wonder if OpenBox works with Redcore. Redcore offers OpenBox as a desktop option alongside its default LXQT desktop environment. However, the OpenBox session is described as a minimal and often problematic upon installation, nearly unusable, freezing, and require a hard shutdown. Except for users have noticed that OpenBox menu provides only basic functionality such as launch to the Xterm, and many entities point empty links. The default OpenBox sub lacks a background image, requiring manual configuration like Fe or Nitrogen. Additionally, OpenBox Session is considered a barren wasteland by some users. Not recommended for new users due to lack of polish of functionality, despite these users OpenBox is available for users. Oh, okay. I should, what does DT have to say? I wouldn't say it makes Gen 2 easy, but I mean, Gen 2 was interesting to install, but we're gonna install Sabotage Linux. Holy shit. Installing Sublinux involves installing a hard disk and USB media. The process is complex and requires a significant amount of Linux knowledge, as Sabotage is a radical and experimental distribution based on Musil and libc and BusyBox. To begin, let's see if we can do it in VM. Of course we can. To install Lebanon on a virtual machine, you can use a pre-built disk image designed for QEMU VirtualBox. Ready to boot disk images are available. I think I already downloaded it. What is real? Okay, so all right. Okay. There we go. All right, I think I got the... No, go back. You can see the image directly in your virtualized surface, or for QEMU, you can use emulator script to provide a Sabotage build environment and boot system, although this method has poor HTTP performance due to the 9P protocol used for mounting file systems. For VirtualBox, you can use manage. Okay. Ultimately, you can use build Sabotage enabled on Linux system with the required tools and dependencies such as Linux 2.0 host kernel and support. Ooh. Okay. Sabotage. Maybe Linux, generic. Directly running on top of WSL, Tumbleweed Headless Hypervisor. Nice. Okay. First quarter. Temporary. The German. Okay. Maybe if I do this. Space 2 gives us used to bootstrap our system lots of time and a fair bit of Linux knowledge. Wow, lots of time? You already lost me. No hey? What up, the con? What do you mean no hey? What the fuck, man? I said hey. Hey guys. And ladies and theys and thems. Alright. I'm too retarded to figure out sabotage Linux. I'm gonna have to do offline research. Hey, they, them, true. That's how we do it here. Look, woman enough, right? We're gonna understand tail missions because I was somebody on Nostr was like, this is like inflationary and tail missions bad. So we're gonna learn more about Monero tail missions. Maybe we'll while on the side I'll look at some esoteric Linux distributions to look at. Maybe some there was an offset. There's this paper that I kind of want to read right here. This is called Untraceable Electronic Mail, Return Address, and Digital Pseudo-Anonymous Pseudonyms. So like something that I would like to kind of like think about because especially this is I believe a digital email or paper from 1981, a very long time ago.
That ensures network security through a fixed block reward of 0.6 XMR every 2 minutes. is an essential tool for creating a substantial base layer that is not reliant on a fee market. Bitcoin's fee model consists of block rewards that are cut in half every 4 years, as creating a substantial base layer that is not reliant on a fee market.
A fee market, not a free market.
Bitcoin's fee model consists of block rewards that are cut in half every 4 years, as well as static block size, which creates a situation where users must bid higher fees to ensure their transactions are included in the next block due to limited space. Over time, the idea is that only transaction fees will be used to secure the Bitcoin network. Downsides to this system can already be observed today. Because the block reward is cut in half every 4 years, the value of Bitcoin must increase. Otherwise, miners will be forced to raise transaction fees and sell hardware in order to offset lower rewards. Furthermore, in times of high usage, transactions have experienced large fee hikes due to the comprehensive fee market. Tail emission solves this by having a constant, low inflation, preventing shocks to the block reward distribution. Block sizes are also not static, so as transactions increase, the block grows in response, preventing fee markets from harming usage. This is relevant because tail emission serves as a defense against bad actors looking to take advantage of this. If miners decide to stuff as many transactions as possible into a block to maximize their fees, the 0.6 XMR block reward will be burned. This penalty also stops spam attacks from suddenly increasing the block size. Lastly, while inflation may be a scary word, tail emission smooth, predictable inflation is important for incentivizing the mining network and for replacing lost coins. In fact, the current annual supply increase with tail emission amounts to only 0.86%. To compare, the annual supply increase of gold is roughly 1 to 2% per year. Tail emission is a fundamental feature of Monero that secures the base layer by alleviating the necessity.
And I think people, this is actually something kind of interesting to understand. People use the word inflation, but they need to kind of like rethink it. Inflation is something that exists throughout history and through time. So it's something that has never not existed in society. It has always existed. Now, there is an economic theory called negative inflation, where inflation goes so low that people essentially stop spending money because they think that it's hypothetically going to go lower, which can cause stop to like economic growth, spending, purchasing, etc., which stop if you're not spending as much and purchasing as much. This kind of halts or hurts economic growth. There is even where obviously inflation is too high, people are not spending money. I believe even under the gold standard, I bought Arch socks for my Feet Finder post. So you just bought Femboy socks. Guys, he just bought Femboy socks. That's all. It is kind of interesting when obviously inflation is too high. People don't want to spend money because they don't want to lose their purchasing power. And one of the biggest issues with Bitcoin is ASIC mining is very expensive, and it can be also very competitive because you have to have a lot of capital in order to be efficient in this market.
And by incentivizing the mining network to secure the Monero blockchain. Because of tail emission, Monero's base layer is self-sufficient and therefore not dependent on centralized second-layer solutions currently being proposed by the Bitcoin community.
Haha, money is Arch. Money is in Arch socks nowadays. True. We don't need actually economy. We need Arch Linux socks. So, now that we kind of understand that, we can go to the basics. Monero block rewards will never drop to 0. Block rewards gradually dropped until the tail emission commencements at the end of July 2022. At this point, rewards will stay at a fixed 0.6 XMR or less per block due to block size penalties. Why? Miners need an incentive to mine. Because of this, dynamic block size competition between miners will cause fees to decrease. If mining is not profitable due to a high cost and low reward, miners lose their incentives and will stop mining. reducing the security of the network. Tail emissions ensures that a dynamic block size is a fee market cap to develop. You could even look at it from another perspective. Bitcoin is very expensive to get into the mining world. You have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I think that is a financial barrier, and thus you are only going to have whales and select few that can actually do it. This is, I believe, one of the reasons, correct me if I'm wrong, they went against using ASIC miners, because ASIC miners can cause a market kind of like competitive edge where people are buying more expensive hardware and maybe getting like XYZ and hashing power, but then you're competing against huge corporations that are mining Bitcoin into the tens of thousands. This is why essentially with Monero you can pool mine because it gives a higher chance of block rewards, and on top of it, it also helps still decentralize the network and safeguard the fact that you are not going to stop mining, so that people can come in and start over mining you. It's more of a security feature and somewhat inflation resistant. There's actually this great thread. The first question, what is the purpose of tail emissions? The first question needs to be asked before considering adopted block size limits, and can a fee market actually work in the absence of base emissions? We first considered a block size large enough or effectively infinite. In this scenario, competition among miners will drive fees towards zero since there is no scarcity. This will turn and cause difficulty and consequently the security of the cryptocurrency to collapse. You must keep in mind that the orphan block is based on arguments that will fail since there are a base presence of the based emissions. This is in fact very legitimate fear of the small block proponents. Part 2. The second case, we consider fixed block size, where block size is small enough to impact fees. The scenario is we have potentially infinite demand with a fixed supply. In theory, fees therefore would go into infinity. We must keep in mind that as a legitimate demand rises towards the fixed limit, it becomes economically attractive for miners, even with small percentage of the hash rate, to spam the network in order to profit in raising overall fees. So this is kind of like a thing that people don't think about. The bigger that Monero becomes in terms of price, the more that the miners will make in terms of fees still. This is something that you have to keep in mind. When Monero becomes more expensive in in-demand currency, fees could get to maybe let's say 10 cents to let's say a dollar to send over the network, and the block reward becomes all right, it's worth more. This still incentivizes miners to be put into the game to help secure the network. Block proponents. In the second case, towards the fixed limit, it becomes economically attractive even with small percentage fees. At this point, only external competitive factors can stop the fees from rising to infinity. This takes the form of fiat payment methods and other cryptocurrencies, with a latter being not affected by a fixed block size limit. The impact of these external competitive factors is to reduce demand by devaluing the entire cryptocurrency. This will be delayed by miner spam, as miners will increase the spam in order to preserve I think depending on which country, mining hardware, no matter the target blockchain, is a huge investment for a single person in most countries. I think you have to save a lot of money to start. Not necessarily. Will you be efficient with a low-end CPU mining Monero versus? You're not gonna. The odds of you discovering a block becomes more difficult and harder with low-end hardware. This is why I do pool mining. That's why a CPU is much cheaper than an ASIC miner, application-specific miner, to be exact. That's the purpose of it. And yes, I understand that like there are certain countries, obviously, like where inflation is much higher, getting imported, like CPUs and like other stuff is higher. But I think it's Monero mining is way more obtainable than Bitcoin mining. I mean, Bitcoin, like go look at Bitcoin miner prices, and this is like still not including the electricity costs, the return on investment, so you can actually get your money back for the thing you bought. I mean, everyone has a CPU. You essentially could just start doing it with the bare minimum CPU you have right now. I'm gonna go get some more water, guys. I'll be back in 1 second. All right. They say water is bad for you. That's probably true. The water made the frogs gay. The electric bill would be insane even if you nonstop mine on a PC or something. I mean, it kind of depends. It depends on the country. Um, some countries have like a low electric rate. Some have high. I mean, it all depends. I'm just saying, in terms of cost. In terms of cost, mining Monero is much cheaper than it is to mine Bitcoin. Okay. Okay, so those are kind of like the important external competitive factors to reduce demand by developing the connectivity. Okay. Right here. The problem I see is that the system is inherently unstable. Either the mining revenue collapses first, or the purchase powering and the mining revenue collapses first. We now come to the next question. Can one create an adaptive block size limit formula that does not converge as time increases towards 1 or 2 above? My instinct tells me no, particularly since the network has no way to measure the key parameters, namely the amount of fees collected per block due to the outbound payments of miners. Furthermore, there has been many brilliant minds looking to this issue and have not come up with a solution. Proving this is negative. A rigorous mathematical sense is, of course, another matter entirely. Well, what the tail missions in Monero does is provide a stable anchor outside of the control of the miners, so on top of which the additive block size is limited and the fee market can actually develop by avoiding instability above. Let me give a slightly different perspective, though. This is what Monero has a de facto limited supply and what we can even estimate it. If we assume there will always be a percentage of the private keys being lost due to technical failures, human error, and probably people dying, this is true, something that people don't think about. A lot of Monero wallet holders' private keys can die, lose to XYZ, and essentially maybe get hacked or stolen. That is never taken into account. Dying and not arranging access, etc., then the fixed rate of supply will each an equilibrium where the rate of production 0.3 minutes in Monero is equal to the rate of loss, which is PM, percentage lost keys per unit. M equals money supply. If we solve this equation, we get M 0.3 per P minute, which comes out to around 30 million XMR with 5% a year. We don't know exactly. We don't know P exactly, and P may not quite be consistent over time, but is a very reasonable model, and it shows that Monero's money supply is not actually infinite in practice, and that's kind of true. The thing is, if somebody dies and they don't give access to it, Monero's supply isn't really finite. If everyone died tomorrow and like all the wallets that existed in Monero just become locked up, obviously it's a useless asset at that point because no one really has a way to buy, use, or spend. This all comes to a buy, use, or spend perspective. I think a lot of people in the Monero community like to spend and use Monero as its intention, which is a currency, and this becomes like a mathematical thing. It's kind of used as its intention versus like Bitcoin. Bitcoin is always viewed as like a hoard perspective. People buy it and hoard it because they consider it, they tag it or maybe correlate it to wealth because of Bitcoin's insane price increase over the last like 10 plus years. 10 plus years. So that is something to keep in mind as well. And I think Bitcoin is highly manipulative. I mean, the fact that it's getting a lot of government involvement is because they realize that Bitcoin is pseudo-anonymous, and even though it's pseudo-anonymous, it has a lot of ways to correlate transactions, which is not good for privacy. This is what I think Monero solves, and what Bitcoin should have and or wanted to be at some point, but Monero kind of like beat it to the punchline, and it makes it much easier. There's less mistakes that you can make with Monero versus that you can make with Bitcoin, and because of that, I think it's the better default option. Even if the mistakes in Monero are still exist, because there are mistakes you can make along the way to expose your OPSEC or like kind of like hurt yourself. Okay. The fuck? What the fuck is this? Monero has disclosed plans for a significant telemission update and improving the network. Okay. Tail missions, as the name implies, is a minimum subsidy designed to keep fees low and provide lower bound of network security, allowing a dynamic block size. Therefore, in this article, we will discover more about the latest update from Monero tail missions. The Monero community has recommended that miners receive a minimum of 0.6 XMR for each block mined on the Monero as a part of tail missions. This is in contrast Bitcoin's system, which permits block subsidy to reach 0. The tail missions is coming in 30 blocks in 30 days. So let's take a few minutes to walk you through why Monero community choose tail missions and how it works and what it means for Monero users and the project's long term. Buckle up, this is going to be a long one. I think it's kind of cool to understand this, because I think it's a misconception that people say that like Monero has like an infinite supply and it's going to go to devalue, because but we're thinking about baseline normal economics. Let's see. This is because miners require a motivation to mine due to the dynamic block size. Competition among other miners will lead to fees to fall. If mining is not profitable due to high cost and low reward, miners will lose motivation and stop mining, decreasing the network security. Tail emissions allows for the development of dynamic block size and fee market. The Monero community considers important because tail emissions ensure that Monero has a certain amount of security standards. However, it removes the weight of security from being 100% on transaction costs and allowing transaction costs to stay fair in the long run. What are the advantages of tail emissions? The block subsidy is a digital currency such as Bitcoin, and it will go to zero in the future. This means the network security will be entirely dependent on the user's transaction fees. However, the fees must be sufficient enough to sustain a competitive decentralized mining ecosystem. Otherwise, the number of miners and BTC hash rate will fall and reach market equilibrium. The moment the transaction cost is only 1% of the reward in each block, the remaining 99% is made up of block subsidies, which will ultimately go to zero. This brings Bitcoin's long-term security assurance into question. Moreover, Monero's tail emissions will guarantee that miners are not entirely reliant on transaction fees. This ensures consistent revenue for them independent of the fees and the market. This tail emission means that there will be 0.6 XMR provided as a reward for miners in every block, instead of allowing the block subsidy to go to zero as most other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin have chosen to do so. This means there is not an arbitrary hard cap supply. There are other advantages of tail emissions upgrades. This makes Monero deflationary. Unlike fiat or centralized cryptocurrencies, the supply is known and predictable at the moment of future. Monero miners are not entirely dependent on transaction fees and can therefore guarantee a fixed revenue regardless of the fee market. The Monero community can create and implement an innovative dynamic block size. Miners can automatically raise the block size to better control congestion by paying a penalty to block subsidy in exchange for TX fees. No matter the fee market, new Monero will always enter the system. It will replace a part of the Monero lost by clumsy users, stimulating commerce, and provide a new entrance to the method of receiving Monero without KYC. To better allow Monero a digital currency while keeping store value properties, the Monero network will scale better. It also guarantees the long-term security of its transactions and keeps costs reasonable. Also, what the fuck? I don't care about that. Nexto explains in 2 minutes. Okay. I will buy Monero, even if I have no other choice but buying XMR, but I will use the currency to get my important things I need. So I have to be extremely careful. I need to figure out getting packages. The thing is Monero has a lot of, I would say, slippage in order to make it a currency. So this is the thing that people get misconstrued. Monero, after reading a lot of Monero papers and using the internet to search on how a lot of Monero's privacy features are implemented, though not perfect, Monero has a lot of slippage. You can make slight mistakes where it wouldn't de-anonymize you, minus maybe some government surveillance, but that goes out of scope of Monero, a Monero problem, and goes more into good OPSEC. Now, one of the key benefits of Monero is when you are, let's say I am Bob and I am sending Alice Monero. So if I send Alice $15 worth of Monero, my address that is created is a one-time address, meaning that it is no correlation to my actual address. Think of it as like a masked email or whatever you want to put it as, but it's essentially a sender for me where I don't need to, like, no one knows the sender. They just know that the sender is sending it out, XYZ. Now, one of the key benefits is as long as no one knows the exact amount that you're sending and the address that you're sending it from, and there's maybe some other correlating factors. If you just look normal and gray man it, you can essentially make some slip ups like, oh, I bought like big big bussy flashlight for my address at 123 Big Cock Lane or whatever, because you can do that, the correlation, the link to the payment and everything gets kind of lost because Monero is really good at hiding in plain view. Another good point of this is the 16 ring signatures. That means it sends out 16 transactions. One of them is real. The rest are decoys. These decoys essentially protect you from a privacy standpoint. So again, there are some slip-ups you can make with Monero where its anonymity isn't really easy to link to you, but unlike, like Bitcoin or Zcash or anything where you need to, or CoinJoin, like, Bitcoin CoinJoin and all like these things, these extra steps you have to make to ensure that your coins are private. That's essentially the biggest problem, is there's a lot of mistakes you can make in between that could leak your to real identity, because most other, if not all other cryptocurrencies aren't private by default. Privacy by default makes it easy. You can make some mistakes with, obviously, don't reveal your transaction ID and your fucking name and like your address and shit, but like in reality it's like basic, common sense. My problem is internal package delivery, not domestic, so there is a custom borders between me and... Yeah, I mean, like, there's a lot of digital packages you can buy where it's not as much of as physical. If your country allows gift cards, you could get around that. Like, you could buy gift cards with Monero. I mean, like, Monero has, like, some advantages. It's not bulletproof. I mean, if you live under an authoritarian regime, then nothing really is going to help you. I like Monero for one reason. I can buy stuff that I would buy digital with my credit card or my whatever, or my debit card or my checking account or cash. I have the option to do it digitally, cash digital, with little to no exposure to what I'm buying. And that's important. It's just less correlation. So every time we go to the private package locker at that post office, I can literally be yeah, of course. I mean, you can get honeypot from anything. And it's not always imperative of what like whether you're being like fucking like honey potted or something. Like that's the point. Is it's supposed to be inconspicuous, but it seems like the issue is like Monero. Like Monero's not a bulletproof solution, but I think it's an answer to a lot of problems. That's how I see it. It's a perspective, though. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Though tomorrow, later today, I'm going to have more of a deep dive into maybe like good OPSEC practice, especially under like authoritarian regimes. Maybe I should do that. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt because I think that it's, obviously don't take advice from the internet. OPSEC is somewhat like there's some objective OPSEC and subjective OPSEC. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to research later people that have lived in extreme regimes and like how they maintain their anonymity. Most definitely much cooler topic, and then some other things that we're going to read live. I appreciate everyone joining the live stream. Remember to argue in the comments so the YouTube continues. XMR is the best solution I have, definitely. Yeah, 100%. Remember to argue in the comments to make sure that YouTube knows that I'm very cool and very based and I'm compliant. And don't forget to wash. Don't forget to walk your pet snail